Here at beautiful... Hi. Here at the beautiful Honda Power Sports of Crofton, picking up my beautiful 2014 Honda Valkyrie for its 8,000 and 12,000 mile service. I also needed, apparently, to get new front and rear tires and new brakes. And the total cost for this one service, the combined regular maintenance and the tires, was $2,111. So today, let's talk about cost of ownership. Woo! Forgive the wobbliness, I didn't bring my tripod out here. I just picked this up just a moment ago. And I want to make real clear before I talk about the cost of the service and then the greater cost of ownership that I am not in any way complaining about Honda Power Sports of Crofton. In fact, I trust them to take care of that. So I want them to do a good job, and I'm going to pay for them to do a good job. And I think they charge fair prices. So this is not a complaint about Honda Power Sports of Crofton in any way. In fact, you should take your bike there. You should go there to look for a new bike. They have a really great selection. Dump truck. You want a motorcycle. I recommend it. I think they're great for everybody. But you have to think about the total cost of ownership of a bike. Very nice bike like this, the 2014 Honda Valkyrie, has regular service intervals, and I got the combined 8,000 and 12,000 mile intervals done at the same time, because I'd just gotten the bike and it was just about 6,000 miles when I got it, and I'm like, you know what, I'll just push it off till 12. And kudos to the dealership service department, because it seems like they awoke a new demon inside of this thing, because it goes. So, but it costs a lot. That was $2,100, also including new tires, new brakes, front and back. And I like to get OEM. I'm sure I could have gotten a cheaper, not OEM one, but at least for the first little while, I like OEM. This bike is really well designed. They put a lot of thought into it, and I'm really happy with the way it's put together. Maybe someday I'll customize it a little bit more with performance or whatever. And that's also part of the cost of ownership. So just this one service and new tires and new brakes, $2,100. My insurance, $170 more or less through Progressive. Good company, I recommend them. But you also need helmet, gloves, protective gear, and that can, a good jacket can run you a couple $100. I've got some chaps on right now that I bought at a motorcycle show for $60, $70. Decent gloves can, be another $40, $50, $60, and you can spend way more than that. A good helmet, not like a racing helmet, but just like a good basic street helmet, can be $400 or $500. So, and that's also not including the cost of the motorcycle safety class, which I recommend. I have to look up the one that I took at Harley-Davidson a few years ago. I had a great time there. Absolutely recommend their Harley-Davidson Rider Academy, even if you have no intention of ever buying a Harley one way or another. But all of that together is part of the cost of ownership. So my Honda Shadow VT 750 from 2003, before I started chopping it up and customizing it, could be bought in much better condition for probably about $2,400. Cool. Very inexpensive entry-level bike. And some people would say that may even be a little too big for entry-level, but it worked for me. I thought it was great. About $2,400 to get a set of two wheels, but then you still have all of that cost. You've got the insurance, you've got the maintenance, you've got the protective gear that you really should ride. And I don't, you could go the cycle cruiser, like inflatable airbag vest route and all of that. That's on you. I'm talking about just basic leather stuff, helmet and gloves. And boots. You want boots too. So think about that when you're like, I'm going to get me a motorcycle. Think about the total cost of ownership. And it may be higher than you expect, but you really don't have to kill yourself price-wise to get it. So if you'll excuse me, back on the road. I'll catch up with you in a minute. All right, home again. This is a really lovely day, and that was a nice little ride. And hopefully in the not too distant future, I'll have another GoPro type camera, because wherever it went, it doesn't hold able to charge anymore, so I can't do any kind of riding footage. Out of my budget, especially since I spent so much getting the Valkyrie serviced. But total cost of ownership. You can save money in a few different ways. For example, you can save money in a few different ways. For example, your riding gear. This jacket was a secondhand jacket, and I didn't pay a thing for it, and I don't know how old it is, but it's in pretty good shape. And it's a little threadbare in some spots, but this is a great jacket. And if I went down in this, I'd probably get some good protection out of it. Better than not a riding jacket, right? So, secondhand jacket, pants, maybe even boots, gloves, as long as they're in okay shape, yeah, I would take those. A helmet, however, I would be real reluctant to take a secondhand helmet. That gray flip-up Harley-Davidson Huntsman helmet that I've got, that's secondhand, and it's at the end of its life. It's service life. It's wearing out. It's getting pretty threadbare in spots itself. So I'm in the market for another helmet as soon as I can afford one. But other helmets, I would never buy a used helmet because I don't know where it's been. I don't know whose nasty head has been in it. I also don't know if it's been dropped or compromised in any way. And the helmet that I've been using was a secondhand, but I gave it a really good look over before I picked it up. Or before I started using it. Other things you can do to save money in the total cost of ownership is do a lot of the work yourself. On older bikes, like the V-twins, where everything's nice and open and exposed, you actually can, with time, do a lot of the stuff yourself. Stuff like oil changes, pretty straightforward, not a lot to it. But if you wanted to start doing things like customizing it, like rebuilding and upgrading things in the carburetor, you might need some special tools for that, just to get to it. Or for the Honda Shadow, let's say you want to redo the clutch, and I did this clutch wrong, so I have to take all this apart and do it all again. But to get that clutch basket off in the middle there, you need a clutch holder. And this wasn't terribly expensive. It was like $50, $60, something like that. But it's still, an extra tool you have to buy to really chunk down that lock nut in the center of the clutch basket. I'm using a pneumatic torque wrench. That's great. Or a pneumatic impact driver. That's great. But this was like $130, $140 from Harbor Freight. Plus you have to buy a socket that fits. Plus you have to buy a hose to get to the air compressor. Plus you have to buy the air compressor if you don't have one. So if you're going to do stuff yourself, that's also going to be an investment. If you don't have the tools or access to the tools and a workspace to do it in. I couldn't be doing this on my street for sure. Oil changes, basic chain maintenance, yeah, no problem. That's out of the way enough of traffic on my suburban side street. But like big overhaul stuff like this, there's no way. So if you want a bike, and you should get a bike, take some time and price out insurance. If you're younger, it's going to cost more. I'm 40, despite my beautiful appearance. I am 40 years old, so my insurance is lower. I've been able to avoid any accidents and tickets of any consequence for a long time, so my rates are pretty good. I don't know crap about credit scores affecting your insurance rates. That's a different discussion. But do some homework, set yourself a budget, and then start saving up. Gather your gear first. If you've got secondhand gear that you can get, great. Just get yourself a good new helmet and start with that. And then once you've got your riding gear, then budget yourself for a bike. And I'd say if you can set aside, after you've got your gear, got your license, you don't need insurance just to have a license. You'll only need insurance once you have a vehicle. once you've got the riding stuff, I'd say budget yourself another $2,500, maybe $3,000 on top of that to get yourself a good, basic, used machine that's going to be in decent shape, and go from there. Whether you go to Craigslist or dealership, entirely up to you. If you go to Craigslist, buyer beware, be safe, be smart about it, have transactions out in public. And if you go to a dealership, know that you're going to pay dealership markup stuff in addition to the cost of the bike. I mean, dealership is still a business. It's got its own overhead to run. It's got to keep its own lights on. It's got to pay its own mechanics and accountants and the owner and the janitor and so on. So you're going to pay more at a dealership and a service shop than doing it yourself or handshake deals off the internet. So, but I really encourage you to try. I think riding will change your life. Certainly changed mine. And this is my biggest sculpture, most complicated piece of art ever. And it is very challenging for me, not really knowing what I'm doing, to learn as I go. But at the same time, the strides that I can make figuring stuff out is incredibly rewarding. So an investment in a motorcycle, the total cost of ownership, is also an investment in yourself. And I think you're worth it. I absolutely think you're worth it. So anyway, that's enough for me. Thanks for tagging along with me. I hope you are safe and well-fed and loved wherever you are. I miss you terribly, and I cannot wait to see you again. Let's all cross our fingers for that vaccine coming out. Oh, now the dehumidifier decides to turn on. So let's cross our fingers, hoping for that vaccine to come out, and I'm going to get it as soon as I can. And be safe out there. We'll see you soon. Good luck.